our English-speaking audience. That is another TV talks from Rangin Kaman, an Iranian Paris-based television, providing recently also in different languages, including English, French, and German. And I am the presenter of these mother languages. I present today a discussion about two important topics, which are in all mainstream actually. And my guest is Dr. Nahid Husseini, who's going to introduce herself further and also greeting our English-speaking audience. My guest has been already with me in different talks, but of our mother language, Persian. And now for the first time, we are talking together in English in this TV. Rangin Kaman, or l'arc-en-ciel in French, as I introduce always in this language, and rainbow in English, which sounds very beautiful words. You are welcome, and you can introduce yourself further and greeting also our audience before we develop our thematics and we talk about these two topics. Microphone is to you, please.
Hello, Jahanshah, and thank you for having me here. And also I would like to say hello to your audience who speaks in English. And also I want to say good luck to your program. It's a new initiative, and I think it's the one of the best idea I have seen so far. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Also, we have got two topics as said. The first one is about the UN election of the Islamic regime as a member of its Women's Commission, which has got a very important responsibility and does not fit a regime which is already against the woman.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems a kind of a joke or a scandal, probably. The second topic, also very scandalous actually, is about Zarif's leaked tape, which is also the title of many foreign newspapers, as I read in French and German, and probably you also in England. So these two topics are important. One is very important for us who are supporting the women as the first victim of the misogynistic Islamic regime. And the second one also is important, but worldwide is important actually. So you can introduce yourself. You are, I think, you do education or something like that with women. You support them internationally. You have got your institutions, your clubs, your circles to defend women's rights in Iran and outside of Iran. If you want to talk about that 2 minutes, and
sure.
Then you continue about the first topic and why UN has accepted or elected actually the Islamic regime, which is a misogynist regime, and it does not fit in such a position.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Well, first, if I want to introduce myself, as you said, my name is Nahid Husseini, and I am a researcher in education and women in Iran. That is my area of research. And also I am a one of the directors of the WISE, Women of Iran for Sustainable Equality. We try to fight the same as women in Iran for our rights or their rights in other countries. In relation to your 2 points, I think those two news have been very important for us and very good idea to talk about it. Especially the first one, it is my area of specialty. On April 21st, the Islamic Republic of Iran was elected to have a seat at the UN Commission on the Status of Women. This commission aims to promote gender equality and women empowerment internationally, which established by the Commission of the Economic and Social Council in 1946. The program for the year 2022 to 2026 aims to bring women into the labor market and get employment. While the Iranian government has a failed record of women entering the labor market, at best, actually, the rate of women employment is only 17%. And they have no role in senior management. They have been left out in the country's economy and policies area. And even Islamic government never signed the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. So the question arises, when a government doesn't follow the women and human rights policies, how is it elected in this commission, and especially for Western countries have voted for it? This is a very disappointing moment for Iranian women activists and feminists. It doesn't seem Iran will change his plan towards to women's rights and so many problems like compulsory hijab, imprisoning women just for exercising their civil rights, child marriage and domestic violence have been increasingly recently. That is the situation of women in Iran. Unfortunately, the news is getting more disappointing while Pakistan is also elected as a member of this commission. According to the report of Global Gender Gap in 2021, among 156 countries, Iran ranks 150. Pakistan is 153, listed on the report. Saudi Arabia ranks 147 and currently is a member of this commission. Exactly. Powerful countries for women's rights. Another question arises when David Rahman reported to the United Nations that Iranian women are considered as the second-class citizens. When Amnesty International has published repeated reports of oppression of Iranian women, when all Western countries know that Iranian women are discriminated against and unjust, why did these countries turn a blind eye to reality? Now, I want to explain a few points that can be a tool for Iran's success in this area. First, they produce untrue reports for the United Nations. And they have so many researchers. For example, in the report of health, refers to the marriage of girls in age of 13. And this matter ignored by the United Nations with no question. While the child marriage under 13 is quite common in Iran, in different parts of Iran. For about girls' education, there are so many reports full of great information about female success in education to the UN. Another claim of Iran is that the academic success of girls is due to existence of the Islamic government, while girls take opportunity and decided that they are not allowed to get employment and could not do anything else. They had left no choice except going to university, because even they can't go to the street because it's not safe. Our government claims educational opportunities for girls and boys are equal. However, they made restrictions of subjects, about 37 subjects, and number of the girls, and gender segregation for some of the universities. So, as I said, giving untrue reports to UN or international media is functioning for them, for the Iranian government. And the second fact is, Islamic government has propaganda power, a strong lobbying, spending money from the people, a strong intelligence team everywhere in all European countries. As a result, they get what they want. In my view, we Iranian in diaspora haven't done enough to communicate with the host countries and international bodies, such as UN. For example, organizing a major campaign against the unfair election of Iran is a matter of our rights and can't be ignored. We have to do something about it.
Exactly. Exactly what the Islamic regime has built up its big lobbyism and tic-tac rooms all over Europe, and they can influence on the policies of European and American countries. Of course, there are also some policies of blackmail, threaten the countries of blowing up, for example, somewhere in the streets, in public areas, and that happened very often, especially in Europe. In England, you know that, it was still more. And so these two weapons actually, lobbyism, tic-tac rooms, and also blackmails, threaten countries if they do not listen to the Islamic regime to favor its Islamic institution or Islamic Sharia in the West, then they can react violently against the European citizens or American citizens. But you said the vote was secret, but there is rumors just running around that 4 countries, European countries, voted for this position, and that is strange. Europe had paid a lot for the terrorism of Islamists in their own countries, and people of Europe. I know that as a citizen German, Our government opened the gates at 1915 or 1916, when there were really mobs of political asylum seekers. They came from the region, the Middle East, and they were accepted with open arms at the beginning. But of course, they could not adapt themselves to European culture and mentality. So they created social problems. They were a little bit violent against women and so on. They did some wrong things that changed the idea, this atmosphere, this friendly atmosphere against them. These countries, do you know what kind of countries they are and why they voted for the regime? Are they afraid of terrorist actions, or are they also because of probably some generous, lavish, corrupt mullahs? They can also, sort out Iran and Iranian resources very easily to those who support the regime internationally. Go ahead, please.
We don't know which Western countries voted for them. I guess some countries like, for example, Sweden or England, they might do that because we know sometimes they have done, they supported Iranian government in many cases, and they ignored human rights and women's rights in Iran, because what they think, most likely, they look at their own national interests and they ignore the rest of the things. But in this case, it is a big question. When a country doesn't have history of supporting women, how it is possible to vote for it? So we don't know which country, and I think that is one of our job, Iranian women's job outside of Iran, to find out those countries and to go to question them. I know one of the newspapers in Germany asked the German government about this, if German government voted, but I haven't got any reply from the friend to see if that is true. Mm-hmm. The another matter is, unfortunately, in United Nations, when they want to elect members for commissions, they don't have many, just they have that number according to number of candidates. For example, in Asia and Pacific, they wanted only 11 candidates and they had only 11. So all of them go to the commission. So they are not very active, especially those countries, if they are not rich, if they are poor, and if they don't have anyone to participate in this area of, definitely it is not the case to be implemented, but they have to give advice, they have to support. When Iranian government is not in that position, how it is possible Iran or Pakistan or Saudi to support women in the region or in other countries? I think there are so many mistakes and so many problems in United Nations itself. Mm-hmm. So when the report is coming and they ignore it, so who is responsible in this case?
There is an institution, actually a kind of non-governmental organization called UN Watch. I think it's somewhere in Switzerland. And its job is to control all these eventual mistakes or apologies that UN or any international institution may do to these countries who are not matching with the human rights conditions. And this UN Watch, I think, has been trying to make us understand some points that, for example, in Iran since 1979, it has been always violence through an acid in the face of so-called bad hijab. Yeah, they've been humiliating publicly women because of respecting this Islamic hijab properly. There are institutions. There are many redneck institutions, groups who are just walking around in the streets to annoy, to hustle the so-called bad hijab women. There are also women who are against other women. You know, that's a complicated problem of psychology called Stockholm syndrome, that the women are more actually against, more anti-women than the man, the mullahs. That's another discussion why we have misogynistic women against their own women. There have been segregation, so gender segregation, as you said, in the universities, in all over, they wanted also in the street, in buses, in all over, you know, public places. But of course, as you said, women in Iran resisted. There are more educated women in Iran than men, and more educated women in Iran than any area in the Middle East. There are as much as educated women in Iran as in Europe, I think. And they are also brave. They are actually precursors of the street fight and resistance against the Islamic regime. There are so many video footages, small, you know, films for them that encourage, the women encourage men to resist, to fight back the Islamic aggressive regime, and their band of you know, rednecks.
Yeah.
What happened that European Europe, with all this old civilization, the old continent, voted for such a country as you said, also Pakistan, Saudi Arabia 4 years ago, and then Kaman discovered that was Belgium. Voted for Saudi Arabia. There was a compromise between two, a kind of plot against the human rights, women's rights, because Saudi Arabia could give probably something instead of this support. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Islamic regime, all they want Sharia promoting all over the world, and they are supported by these civilized, secular, laic countries, as you named, for example, eventually Sweden and Germany or England. Can you talk about that another 5 minutes, explain all this contradiction that gives a 4-year term position to Islamic regime? We know that we have forced opposition outside of Iran. They try to justify the regime and to promote its parasitic life because they have their own interests, of course. But what happened to European countries, they have also a portion of human rights in their policy. The constitution do not allow them to be, nasty with people who are repressed actually by a criminal regime. They have to support these people. That's the constitution. Because I know the German constitution does not allow the government to do something wrong with other people with any reason. Okay, go ahead. I hear, please.
Okay, I think there are a few points in your discussion. The first one is why European countries voted for Iran. I am sure all of us, we know other countries, they are looking for their own national interest and people. So that is our job, to think about ourselves, to think about our country. So always we shouldn't blame to other countries. I think we, Iranian, we have to think twice and then to find out a solution to get rid of this regime in order to make our country in a better situation. So European countries, I think they know everything about Iran. But what they are looking for, maybe they are looking for example, having a business or political relationship with Iran, and they ignore the human rights and women's rights. So that is the first thing. The second thing is about UNWatch organization in United Nations. As I know, I can't remember his name, Mr. Helen, I think. Very quickly after that day, he mentioned in his Twitter that today was a dark day for human rights in the world. And he questioned the commission why they voted for Iran. But as I said, they don't have that much power to change the decision. For example, now Iran has been elected for 4 years. What we are going to do? We can't do anything in practice. We can criticize, but it is not enough. We have to think about it before it happened. We didn't know that. We didn't look at the news. We didn't know how many countries are candidates for this position. So I think we are not communicating enough with international bodies. That is one of the problems we have. And then you mentioned something else about women against women. For us, for Iranian women, that is not the case. We are faced with some kind of problem, but it is not a huge problem. So I think it's better in this discussion, we leave this one for another time. And you mentioned about the level of education of Iranian women. Is true. Until 2009, we had about 67% of students female. Iranian women are well educated, but no job. They don't have any, great roles in politics, economic, and other area of, decision making. So they have potential to bring changes. We know that. Everybody knows that. But just I want to correct some of the information. In the Middle East, is that true? We have a lot of well-educated women, but at the moment, Saudi Arabia is doing better for women. They have more women at work. For example, in Iran, we have only 17%. In Saudi Arabia, we have 22%. Or in Kuwait, we have 50% women working is equal to men. And level of education is quite high. But what we have is we have a great background. We have 100 years women movement in our country. That is a history. That is a background. We have to use these good things to build our, to change the law or to change the culture. Unfortunately, for these 42 years, we have been in a very, very bad situation. All of us, we know that. And we know one of the reasons this government stays longer is because of the support of Western countries.
True.
Always, yeah, always I criticize this if I talk to my English friends.
Okay, Dr. Nahid Husseini, we can end up with this chapter of discussion. We can talk about the second topic, but something that is common, I mean, a kind of something needed for any kind of activity as opposition in Iran is to have a unified opposition, at least for the main exigence of people, like liberty, freedom, equality between men, women, and in many other fields. And women are, in many fields, also the precursors. That is a very, very proud subject that in Iran, women have taken really the streets many times, precursors, even encouraging men to fight back.
Yeah.
And they have also paid a lot of damages for that. Many of them in prison, many of them were shot dead in the streets, and many of them had to just look somewhere worse as asylum political seekers like you and me and many other people. Okay, the second topic is about our Mr. Zarif, Javad Zarif. A funny guy, of course. He is also a kind of Bazari man, a son of a mullah or someone from these staff, this milieu. So what do you think about his tape in few words? And then we talk about that further, please.
Yeah, I think that is another important issue to discuss, because from last week, everywhere we can see is written about a videotape of Javad Zarif. Many important issues have been raised in this videotape, and it will be a source of media attention for a long time. And now we can see the conflict between the two factions in government, and it made it difficult to continue the Vienna talks of Iran deal. So at the moment we see these 2 points. And also I would like to add the results of Zarif's audio tape. We can see some objectives here. First, Qasem Soleimani represented Putin in Iran, and no action was taken without his permission. That is the first claim of Zarif. The second claim was war policy has been more important than diplomacy. And it is true again. And also the third thing, John Kerry's information about Israel attacks in Syria against Iran, friendship and then John Kerry told everything to Zarif. I think these 3 points were important, and the main topics of the videotape. I heard only just 3 hours, but I know it's about 7 hours. I think this audio tape has been published from the hardliners for 2 main reasons. First, to isolate Rouhani and Zarif, so the Iran deal could end in hardliners' name. For 8 years, Rouhani and Zarif worked hard for this, but the result goes to hardliners. That is their first aim. And
I can interrupt you for just a second before I forget the point of Vienna atom talks, actually, that I read in one of German papers, that there has been an impact on the Vienna atom deal, that the regime can no more bargain. And there has been a kind of rhythm that slowed down their agreements and atmosphere, friendly atmosphere of making compromises. I think that was in the Spiegel I read a few days ago, and that even delegations are going back to their own country to consult with their own authorities to see how they can continue in such a bad atmosphere. And that was a point I wanted just to say, that in Europe, in French and German papers, the impact is very, very sensitive, very, very conspicuous. And also in America, between 2 main parties, because John Kerry apparently, according to Zarif, leaked out secret information, state secret informations, who was not supposed to do that. I mean, the impact is internationally very serious now. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that is true. But you know, John Kerry refused to accept it. You know that John Kerry said he never said something like that to Zarif. But what we know is it has been problematic since last week after publishing this audio tape, not only in Iran, also in the world. That is true. We have to see for next week, because they are coming back on Friday, and we see what it will be the result. Then we can judge if this videotape, audio tape, has impact on the negotiations, which I believe it does, but we have to see the more aspects of it.
Okay.
But at the moment, I'm talking about those 2 reasons for internal achievement. One is Rouhani and Zarif, they put them aside from the politics.
I mean, you are kind of hitting the point that our polarizing aspect campaign based on the next June election, and they are now kind of this presidential rival between both factions. You mean that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the first result of this tape is that point you mentioned. Zarif was left out, I think, as a potential presidential candidate. He you know how many times he apologized? So he doesn't have any more respect for, I'm not saying reformist, but moderate, to invite him or to support him as a candidate for presidency. So that is one of the main achievements for hardliners. Another thing is they want to be successful in these negotiations themselves. So Arakchi had this message from Khamenei to go ahead and to sort out things. And we can see some signs of agreements at the moment, but we don't know exactly what it will be in next week. We have to wait for that. So if at the moment Zarif is in the region, traveling different countries, he hasn't.
Zarif, you mean Zarif has already lost any chance to be a candidate of the presidential election?
Yes, yeah, that is my view.
You know, we in Iran, Iranian people actually used to add a portion of conspiracy theory to any story. Okay, and there are some theory they're saying this maneuvering between different factions is already a scenario to bring finally Zarif as a good guy. The good guy is someone who is not supported by the supreme leader because of the whole indignation that people have against him. He is hated by most people. So when he supports someone, actually, hinter all causes, there is some manipulating, engineering plot that this person must be actually victimized for the good guy, and the good guy might be someone who is not supported by the leader, by the supreme leader, who is very hated, and people do exactly what he does not want against his will. And that is also a conspiracy theory, probably, that Zarif at the end is someone who might be a good candidate for president.
Well, Jahanshah, sorry to interrupt you, but have you listened to Khamenei's speech yesterday? Yesterday, he said the message of this tape is, makes the enemy happy. And he criticized Mohammad Javad Zarif. He criticized that. And also, he made it clear, reformist or moderate people, they don't have any place in future of Iran. I mean, during the presidential election, it looks to me, he said, just they are going ahead by themselves.
Yeah, but
no reformists, no Zarif.
That could be a part of this engineering
part of the game.
Poker. That could be also that's with empty hand, okay? And that is what is going on exactly in opposition of what they are saying and what they're claiming now. In the Islamic Majlis, it was also, a big arguably discussion against him, against Zarif, and they also sent a lawsuit against him because of his insulting to Soleimani.
Yes.
Of course, he excused himself. He excused at the end. I mean, the game is so that partly can be something happens probably not engineered before, and something can also be a part of the scenario which is supposed to be played like that because of a very certain goal they have at the end. It's a kind of mixture of both, it's chaotic, probably. It's a bit chaotic. Okay.
It is, but we see the way they are going ahead. They want to plan all the process by hardliners. That is something I can see. So I can't see any place for people like, for example, Zarif or Tajzadeh or, you know, Rouhani to do anything else. Until last election, they wanted to play and they wanted to bring people in the streets. They wanted to encourage them to vote, but they know this time people are not going to vote. So it doesn't matter for Supreme Leader if people are coming to vote. They have decided already, I think.
But there are also something that we do not we do not have to forget, that there is nobody in Iran who can move his little finger without permission of the Supreme Leader.
Yeah.
We know that. That is absolute dictatorship in Iran, okay?
Yes.
And when now someone dares to criticize someone like Soleimani or hardliners who are much closer to the Supreme Leader, if it's not a conspiracy, but it shows also there are serious opposition between them. There are rivalities between them, or one is rival of another probably. And here, the Supreme Leader is the one who will probably decide who should be elected or selected out of the urns, voting. I mean, that's engineering voting, I would say.
Yeah.
So there are some expressions for that also in Iranian. That's a kind of vote which is between election and selection. Okay, just you know, to sell some shows up of democracy in the mullah's regime. Otherwise, people in Iran know the reality that all is the games, the poker games, and their hands are so empty that people cannot be deceived again. 42 years they have been deceived between good guy and bad guy, and the regime had always abused the sentiment of fear, which is a very natural sentiment given by evolution laws to any being, to be able to resist, to escape, to attack for his instinct life, okay? And the regime had abused that, and between that and the wars, the regime planned that people vote for someone who was supposed to be elected or selected. And he was the one who played the good guy. And the other one, the bad guy, like, for example, Raisi, that was clear. He could not pass these red lines. He was stopped, okay? The Rouhani was actually the main selected of the Supreme Leader. I mean, the theory can conclude that. So if you want to talk another 5 minutes to get some conclusion words, or synthesizing probably something that has not been developed enough, go ahead. You have the floor for another 5 minutes for the last words, please.
Yeah, okay. We discussed two important matters. One was Iran was elected in UN Commission, and then a discussion about Zarif. What is the conclusion of this? Situation in Iran is complicated, and I think we are in a huge crisis, especially until the election. I believe if we are not active enough, I am talking to opposition, Iranian opposition, if they can't get united, we lose more. So having a united opposition is important for Iranian inside, and also we show the world there are I mean a huge plenty of people educated with a different kind of specialty. They are able to run the country much better than these people which they don't have any experience in management. We can see the situation of Corona. People are suffering. We see the women, no rights soever. Always they have been struggling to get something for their life. And also for young people, there is no job. And also they sell some part of our countries to Russia or to China. I think at the moment it is important to trust each other, to trust especially to those women in Iran. They are fighting not only for their right, for people's right, and then to get rid of this regime with our support. We can't trust any Western countries even to help us, to support us, unfortunately.
Okay, so we have two topics about women, Iranian women merit, deserve as a laic or secular democratic government. They are precursors in many fields. They are more educated, they are courageous, and they want really liberty, emancipation. And they do that, and that will be probably a renaissance in Iran, and it promotes in all over the Islamized world, probably. So this renaissance, we hope, starts from Iran, is something which is needed for the Islamized world. The second party was about contradiction or compromises between different factions, hardliners and so-called reformists, because we have 2 months left to June election. And there is also there are some ideas saying that so-called the dog does not bite its own tail. Everybody in this regime are just this dog. So they do not bite each other's tail. And the regime had only one single enemy, and that is the Iranian people. And Iranian people have their main enemy. The main enemy sits in their country, and this Islamic regime, which has done more damage than any colonial countries in 15th till 17th century. The main imperialism, the main colonial power is the force of occupation of this regime, which cannot really be as an Iranian body. It is just a body that occupied the land and take in hostage people, resources, energy, oil, even seas, waters, and they abuse all they can just to prolong their parasitic life. So we have to get rid of that. We need a united and determined opposition to get rid of this regime, and then we will see how we can rebuild a country which has been damaged, which has been destroyed, actually. Okay, that was our program. Thank you, Dr. Nahid Husseini. We will probably see for other occasions. We can talk about different topics. and we know each other for many years. And we have now occasion to talk in your English. And I thank also all English-speaking audience of Rangin Kaman or Rainbow TV, which is in Paris. And I am the presenter of this TV in these different languages. Thanks again, and see you later.